Illuminati philosopher, and these are my thoughts. I'm going to explain to you how off the rails Tucker Carlson can be. Now, don't get me wrong, you cannot dismiss everything that he says, but when he goes off the rails, you must challenge him.
States defined by its hatreds, not its loves, not its hopes, but by its hatreds. They hate all kinds of people, large groups of people, the deplorables, the bitter clingers, America's entire blue-collar population, the unfashionable people. They're hated by the people who run our country.
That's how Tucker starts off before he introduces Alex Jones. Hatred. Hate is a very strong word. Now, I guarantee you that most Americans can't stand inconsiderate people, lacking regard for the rights or feelings of others. That's why we got the Civil Rights Act. Most Americans agreed that it was necessary because the country was infested with inconsiderate people. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Inconsiderate people were always the problem. I don't care what race, inconsiderate people are the greatest threat of this world. That is the undisputed fact. They cause so much problems. Did you know that when black people got out of slavery, it was much easier to attack and marginalize them? So regular white people were doing their thing. They had their own problems. Regular white people were not about harming or doing anything nasty to black people unless those black people did something to them. Considerate. The racist white people, inconsiderate, oh, they went ham on black people because they had the freedom to do so. Blacks were not property anymore. The slave owners would do something if their slaves were lynched or harmed in any way. But now, black people did not have that protection, so the inconsiderates went after black people. The attacks, murders of blacks, stealing from blacks, black vagrancy, denying black people jobs, etc. Because of the lack of jobs and vagrancy, blacks resorted to crime, and now blacks can be pushed into prisons. All that skyrocketed after slavery. I knew this for the longest time. I want you to hear Sally E. Hayden, who did slave patrols. The interviewer wanted her to explain the dramatic murder rate post-war, which is after slavery.
When I was really struck by this distinction that you touched on just now, but it kind of really drove home in the book, is that, post-war, that constraint on what the patrol could do to an African American was because they were someone else's property. And then after the war, murder is really just skyrockets.
Absolutely. This is actually what was the tip-off to me about why are there slave owners serving on patrols? Well, they're effectively like the brakes, if you will, on what might otherwise be a runaway car. If you imagine yourself into the mind of someone who is not a slave owner, who's put on to slave patrol duty because you got your name got pulled, or you were the one who your record got pulled and the court put you on, you might have no sympathy whatsoever towards either slaves or their owners, and you might be the first person in line to say, let's just shoot him. And that sounds crude, but that's the reason why the slave owners were part of the patrollers, was to prevent that sort of going off the rails behavior by people who otherwise would have no reason to stop. And those breaks are gone in the post-war period. There's no property angle in African Americans. Indeed, there's a negative, a strongly negative incentive. If that individual owns land that you want, if they have crops that you want, if they have something else that you want, then of course you're going to use all the violence in the world to try to get it.
You hear that? There's a lot of misrepresentation when it comes to slavery and black and African history. So what Tucker Carlson was talking about in that clip were the hatred for the inconsiderates. All Americans should despise the inconsiderates. They're infested throughout all of society, and we have to put a stop to them and make them act right. There is no place for their misbehaving. They are taking the word freedom and defining it the way they want, which conflicts with the rest of us. Treat people the way you want to be treated. I guarantee you that most of the inconsiderates gravitate towards people like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones. Like I said, they do make sense every now and then, But you have to ask yourself, why do these inconsiderates gravitate towards them?